Some clubs die on the pitch, while others disappear in silence. And then there are clubs that are told they no longer exist. In the heart of Slovenia's capital, a football club was erased from the map. Not relegated, not defeated, but just removed. This is not a story about trophies, it is a story about identity. About what happens when a club disappears, but its supporters refuse to move on. Welcome to Hidden Club Stories, where every club carries a story. This is the story of Olimpija Ljubljana. This episode is sponsored by Hidden Shirt Club. They sell football shirt mystery boxes with the real stories. Ljubljana is not a metropolis. It is not a city of skyscrapers or millions, but it is a city with a long memory. For centuries it lived under foreign flags, under empires, later inside Yugoslavia, and eventually as the capital of a young independent country. Here, identity was not taken for granted. Here, you had to constantly show who you were. That is why football became more than a game. It was a release, a meeting point, a place where an entire city recognized itself. On match days, streets flowed towards the stadium, green and white everywhere. Flags from the windows, scars around the necks of generations that might never meet somewhere else. Olimpija was not a hobby, it was a shared feeling, a voice, a mirror of the city. Whoever you were in Ljubljana, on the terraces, you were first and foremost Olimpija. Olimpija was founded in 1945, at a time when Slovenia was not yet an independent country. It was a club inside a federation, a city inside a larger whole, but on the pitch Ljubljana found its own voice. During the Yugoslav era, Olimpija represented pride, not always the richest, not always the strongest, but the club of Slovenia's capital. Between 1965 and 1981, Olimpija spent 18 seasons in the Yugoslav First League. They faced Red Star Belgrade, Dinamo Zagreb and Hajduk Split. Every match was more than points. It was recognition. It was presence. It was the right to exist. On the terraces, a group emerged that would guard that identity fiercely. The Green Dragons. They were loud, visible, uncompromising. Green and white were not just colors, they were a promise. A promise to stand by the club regardless of opponent, table position or political climate. For them, Olimpija was not a logo, it was family. History, street culture, a way of saying this is who we are. Generations grew up with the same ritual, the same songs, the same stand, the same belief that their city would continue to exist through this club. Olimpija proved that Ljubljana was more than a dot on the map. It was a place with a voice, with character, with a soul. No history, no matter how rich, is immune to collapse. In the early 2000s, things began to crack. Poor management, rising debt, promises that were never kept. On the pitch, Olimpija tried to survive. Off the pitch, everything slowly fell apart. And then, in 2005, came the moments no one dared to say out loud. The club went bankrupt. Not relegated, not rebuilt, simply gone. A name removed from the league, a stadium that lost its voice, a history suddenly spoken about in the past tense. For the supporters, this was not a sporting disaster, it was a loss. As if someone had taken away their youth, their weekends, their rituals. As if the city had lost part of its memory, the stadium was still there, the stands still stood, but the songs were silent. Where green and white once flowed, there was only emptiness. Olimpija was gone, and with it, a piece of Ljubljana's soul. But some clubs do not live in statuses or balance sheets. They live in the people. And as long as people keep believing, a name is never truly gone. Not long after bankruptcy, a new club was founded. The same colors, same city, and same dream. Olimpija returned. But not as a proud name of the past, it had to start over again. Lower divisions, modest pitches, far away from European nights. For many it felt strange. Was this still their club, or just a new project with an old name? On the terraces there was loyalty, but also doubt. Hope, but also pain. Yet they kept coming back. Week after week, season after season. Slowly, something grew again. Not just a team, but a feeling. The promotions followed, titles returned, Europe cautiously came back to Ljubljana. With every win, with every chant echoing again through the stadium, one thing became clear. This was more than a restart, this was a rebirth. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Olimpija was alive again. For outsiders, a football shirt is just fabric, a color, a logo. But for those who belong, a shirt carries memories. Green and white are not just club colors, they are the colors of a city, of its squares, of its history. On the chest, the dragon, the symbol of Ljubljana. Powerful, watchful, unyielding. Whoever wears that shirt wears more than a club. They wear a story, the story of a city that recognizes itself in a team, of generations raised on the terraces, of a club that disappeared and came back. And on those stands they are still there, the green dragons, not as decoration, but as guardians of the soul. They remembered the silence after 2005, the empty seats, the closed gates. That is why they sing louder today. Not only for goals, but for everything that survived. When the club itself disappeared, for them, Olimpija is not a product, not a business, not a trend, it is their heritage. Something you pass on, like a scarf, like a song, like a good story. Olimpija once died on paper, but some clubs do not live on paper. They live in voices, in colors, in memory. They live in a city that refuses to forget who it is, in supporters who keep singing even when everything falls silent. And as long as green and white continues to move through the streets of Olimpija, as long as the dragon watches over the terraces, this club will never truly disappear. Because some shirts are not worn for a team, they are worn for a story. And in this story, Olimpija refuses to die. Thanks for watching this hidden clip story. If you want more stories like this, consider to leave a like and subscribe to my channel.